Well, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Franklin Tourism Commission and proceed to the roll call. Jeff Kavirsky. Here. Bill Elliott. Here. Barbara Wesner excused. Mark Wiley. Here. And if you will all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
It is 2 minutes after 6. I'd like to open up the citizen comment period. And seeing no citizens present for comment, subsequently close that citizen comment period. Move on to agenda item 3. Approval of our draft minutes from the January 15th meeting of the Tourism Commission. Those meeting minutes are in your packet. Comments or corrections? Minutes? Yes. Printed.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as.
Got a motion as presented by Brisky. Is there a second? Second by Elliott. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes of the January 15th meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. Moving on to reports, and we've got, excuse me, Mr. Wiley with Engage Franklin.
Okay, so I excuse Brandon because we have nothing to say really, because the board of Engage did not have quorum for the last board. The next board meeting is coming Monday. But the only other thing I can say, and this was already recorded in minutes, Novana thing is on for sure. They've got contracts. He's continuing to work on a number of other opportunities, but he asked me not to go into any detail on those because he wants to review it with the board. We have 6 partnerships signed up and paid for the visitor guide, and 3 are pending as of a week and a half ago, maybe. But things are moving. After our tourism meeting last time, I did talk with that he has to present an actual budget spreadsheet for us to see, not just. So he will be putting that together. So that's it.
Questions? Mark?
Oh, the golf show is 2 weeks.
Okay. And that's
at Bucks Golf.
Under unfinished business, and I'm wondering, John, if we can talk about the order of our agenda here. So we have our we have the investment vision, and I think need some guidance on what we can discuss this evening. So maybe help us and whether jump into this now or just jump down a couple and then circle back under unfinished. Is the idea that, and this was emailed to all members prior to the meeting, to just review the survey and
We like what is laid out. If there's suggestions, we can make suggestions. We're just trying to figure out what it is we all want to take. We all want to take.
okay.
And then go from there, and then we can make the edits and send it out to the commission members.
Okay. Well, then I think we can do that right now. So, as we talked about at the last meeting, John started with putting together some questions that, and then sent it my direction, and took that and expanded on it a little bit. And then it went back to John for another review. And so what you see in the packet is the result of that back and forth. And it was designed, and I guess this is what we should talk about as we go through this. It was laid out, excuse me, to discuss the strategic planning investment priorities under question 1, right off the bat, getting into here are some suggested projects or plans, and can you take these and rank them from, 1 being the, maybe this is how that ranking will go, but maybe 1 being the most important to what do we have there? 5 plus an other category. So you would just rank those. You list number 1 as your top priority, down to number 5 on the lowest on your priority list, or write in an other and rank that. That belongs where it belongs. I think as we go through this, can I just solicit comments and suggestions from the 3 of you, so that we'll take some notes and we'll tighten this up for official distribution. Maybe we use this meeting then to, if we need to, make a motion to accept what we have, or accept that changes are forthcoming. I don't know if we can actually work on a revised version between meetings and end up with a final copy to go out, or maybe with just some direction.
Approved as edited, I guess, and make the edits and send them out. If someone thinks that we got it wrong, then we can come back next meeting.
Okay.
But we do need slots in those first questions, so you can put numbers in there instead of little circles.
Yeah.
This is a real test. Challenge you to make your own circles, and write in those, or use the ones there.
So I'm going to, if you're all right with the ranking system of 1 is your most important, to 5 at least, you would rank these priorities. Again, I'll just tell you what went into designing this very first question, which really, if you look through this, you'll notice that everything else ties into the first 5, right? It follows up on these priorities. So, we listed here the idea of creating, expanding, and improving annual significance. So that could mean creating an annual event that doesn't exist, taking a current annual event and helping it grow, or maybe investing in improving, again, another annual event to help it reach different audiences, or expand its offering, whatever that might look like. So that's the idea behind the first item there. The idea of generating something that becomes like July 4th celebration.
What's your time?
The next one is this idea of investing in support services, marketing technology that could be used by Engage Franklin, or and maybe in connection with Engage Franklin would be found, researched, and contracted by tourism. And again, some examples that we put in there was if there was a certain direction the visitor guide wanted to go, and we as a commission said, great, why don't we take a look at content generation services, advertising agencies that will collect the ads and split revenue and turn the guide into not only is beneficial for the area and useful, but maybe self-sustaining within a year. And then you're off to the races with ad revenue, covering the cost. So that was one idea. Another would be, again, do we install some sort of location technologies that when folks coming to the Franklin area, suddenly their phones are content pushed. Folks, when they're in the market, helping to make some, know where to go, what to do, where to stay. AI travel, virtual travel planner. Again, this would almost be an add-on to the website, I would think, to engage Franklin, that like a chatbot where you're on it and it says, hey, looks like you're looking for a place to eat or some lodging or a wedding venue. Can I help? Or let me make some suggestions and I have you through how to find what you're looking for, or actually to go ahead and put together an itinerary for a trip to Franklin. Visitor data analytics, really collecting, investing in some, again, technology that would allow us to have a better idea of who's staying in the market. Again, that's on this table that I do when it comes to engaging with companies that use and sell data to say, oh, Lance was in Franklin doing this, spent this much time on this and searching for this, so it might be something you want to put away. So that's the idea there. And again, stop me if any of these, as I just go through these 5, there's something that doesn't make sense or you think we should modify the description of it, be a little more clear.
Above that point, the second bullet there, is it just the technology or is it also the advertising that goes with looking for it? I'm assuming it would be both. So geofencing technology, we buy the subscription to that software or whatever, but we're still going to have to pay to from my understanding. I'm not an AI guy or a marketer, right?
Yeah.
But my understanding, we still have to pay to push those advertising those people. So do we want to wrap into there that it's the support services, marketing technology, and advertising, or something along those lines that goes into some of that tech?
Yes, we can do that.
Maybe I'm diving too far into the weeds. That's fine.
No, I'm wondering, I know when we approached these, we looked at it as something that we would, not that we couldn't, but we were trying to maybe look for ways to get things, invest in something that either self-sustaining, somebody like Engage Franklin can pick up and run with, but doesn't saddle an organization with ongoing costs that they may have trouble funding in future years. That we create something that, why did they? That was nice in 2025, but here we are in 2030, and this is costing us X number of dollars, and we either shut it down or we're going to find a new funding source to take care of it. I think we were trying to find. So I guess why I'm telling you that is on the advertising side. It would make sense if the advertising could be wrapped up. It would be, again, part of this self-sustaining, moving forward, that somehow that's covered. Or am I explaining that right?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's like more like a one-time cost kind of a thing, right? But the problem is, I think in today's world and software and technology, we all know we're paying our monthly subscriptions instead of buying, Microsoft Office and using it for 10 years, right? I think that's the issue. But even there, I feel like we dabble with that. We work on that geofencing or whatever it is, and it includes advertising the first time. We're going to see that return on investment, or we're not. So we know if we continue to invest in it later on, it's a while.
Do you think and advertising should be added to the right after marketing technology, or?
Well, that's what marketing technology is, advertising. The thing is, you have to have something to advertise. That's the biggest thing, is you can't just advertise City of Franklin, geofence City of Franklin. You got to have some type of something to.
Yeah, so I guess the way I'd read it is like the technology is what helps us drive it, but then you got to pay for the advertising on top of it, right?
And again, it's an ongoing there. It's just like the number of impressions and all this. You're paying for a lot of this stuff, and then there's a lot of companies out there. I mean, I'm going through this now, and it's like, well, they pay for number of impressions. Well, number of impressions could be just a click, or everybody's. So you have to watch what you're doing, but you also have to have the substance advertised. You can't just say, we're going to advertise City of Franklin, Engage Franklin. Well,
but okay, that's great, but let's,
Yep.
you know, that's why it's like, you're putting the cart in front of the horse. It's like, we gotta have the activity or develop that what we're gonna advertise.
Right. Yeah.
You
So
know?
maybe a word that came to mind when you started explaining it, Jeff, was messaging. So it might be something like investing in support services for marketing and messaging technology, because the message then would be right? That's what you're pushing out there. There's the advertising.
Sure.
You know, that's where, you know, I mean, not jumping ahead, but that's why, like, we have developing tourism attraction. That basically should be number one, and then you can go to number two as far as marketing that, or three, you know. So it's like and you look at it, you can do it all tech, you know, you're gonna advertise what? You're like, show me what's in it for me. You know, okay, I'm gonna advertise a hotel. Okay, well, what hotel? You know, you gotta know what you're advertising. It's a hard, nowadays advertising is completely different than putting an ad in the paper. You know, like ads in the paper, radio, even a radio ad is completely different. I mean, I know what I'm doing right now. That's my plan is going forward here, and it's like, but you can put a billboard up, and anybody driving past that billboard, you can geofence, and you know, they say Polish Fest, and they go, oh, and then all of a sudden it'll pop up in their phone. It's scary. It's just literally scary. But I have to pay for it. It's, you know, if I want to pay for that, they'll do that. Then so every time you open your phone, it's going to be like, oh, Polish Fest. You know, oh, I saw that billboard. You know, and it's all. So it's really scary that the technology has really gotten really big. And anybody going to, like you said, anybody driving through McDonald's, you can geofence it, and next thing you know, you're getting ads from McDonald's. But you have to have the substance to say this is what we're advertising.
Right. You gotta have a message that gets sent out their way, right?
So it's really, I mean, the technology and the AI is just really taken over as well. But, you know, we have to have, I think the more important thing is we have to come up with substance. What do we want to add? What do we want to market? What do we want to advertise? Do we want more attractions? Do we want sports? Do we want bird watching? I mean, it just, what's going to bring the bang for the buck?
And are there current things we should be promoting more to drive more
Right.
already, right?
So it's all the numbers are basically all tied together as one big project.
Well, I'm going to, again, add then advertising or messaging to that description, if that's okay, for that particular.
It's kind of embedded in question number 5, but highlighted up there in the definition.
Right.
Yeah, because these are meant to be, again, priorities. Now, we drill down a little bit on in future questions about how important are certain aspects of this, but this is meant that this question number 1 is to get you to know what are the priorities, member, as a commission member, given what we've listed, or adding your own, what are those priorities? Yeah, more interested in events? Do you like the idea of developing new tourism attractions? No. And it's all, I mean, as somebody once told me, you know, all marketing dollars are good. I don't know if that's true. But getting the word out there and doing all these activities will not hurt tourism, that's for sure, right? It's just which are maybe going to be more beneficial. All right, so I'm going to move on then to number 3. And again, these are just meant to be categories of types of investment to get us talking about, or to get us prioritizing what areas we want to take a look at for investment. So number 3 is this idea of, and this keeps showing up because it came out in the very first study we had commissioned years ago, the idea that there's a lot of open space, 25 square miles of Franklin, and we are blessed with an abundance of trails, parks, and as we discovered from one person that was applying for the director position way back when, he said, you know that this area is kind of known for its bird variety.
I had to think about what you were talking
I remember that gentleman from he was from Schaumburg, or some suburb out of Chicago. I think about moving up here, but he had done quite a bit of research, and he said, among bird watchers, Franklin is kind of this area is fairly well known. I'm like, really?
Well, and the Conservancy does bird walks.
Yeah. So we just listed it as a with some suggestions of what that might be. Are we investing in again enhancing and promoting some feature-based? I think that one's fairly straightforward. agree or disagree that it should even be listed on there, but I mean, there it is. And if there's strong feelings about removing it, I'd be happy to strike through it. But that is one of the investment priorities. Next one is developing new tourism infrastructure. So related to one thing that came to mind, well, I wanted to be careful here because Gage Franklin territory, but one of the things that you would list on here might be like a visitor. All right. I didn't list, we put that on here because I thought that was more of a, might be, I mean, it could be. Felt it was more of an Gage Franklin. And I know they're looking at it.
Let's take a minute and talk about it. The way I looked at this was if we wanted to give Engage money, they could do any of these.
Right.
I mean, we could define, here's the boundaries of giving you the money, what our expected outcome is. So I think that any of this could be Engage Franklin decide to do that. Or we could hire some other agency or company, whatever. So I don't think Engage Franklin will threaten, nor should
No,
they.
and I didn't mean to imply that. You're absolutely right. The actual boots on the ground and the folks that will execute on this, probably it's Engage Franklin for some of this, if not a majority of it.
So the Advanced Tourism website with AI trip planning, virtual travel planner, that might fit very well into what they're doing. Yeah, I can't answer that. Could fit very well. So that would be a question I would after we develop it. We want to give Engage the opportunity to vote well.
Or see what they're interested in. They may not be interested in some of these.
And while we're taking that little side trip, large scale music or arts festival, would that be something like Tacos and Tequila? This something new. Tacos and Tequila was a pretty large scale event done privately, I think, by Rock.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So would we be looking to do something similar to that, or would we maybe give them some money to help them? Although they promote it pretty well, and they get a ton of people.
Yeah.
So I don't know that they would need any more.
Right.
For that, but is that the kind of thing you're thinking as far as a music or arts festival or food and beverage festival?
I think the answer to that is probably yes. When you're looking at generating a new annual tourism event, yes.
Okay.
Something along those lines. Yes.
Okay. And that again could be something that we could sub out to Gage Franklin. Hey, you're the feet that are going to do this job.
Right. No, and that's an important point to bring up here. And maybe then, like, a visitor center needs to back in the parentheses, as far as that goes. That's up for discussion as far as what the thought is on that type of tourism infrastructure. I'm beginning to wonder the value of visitor centers anymore. The idea of pulling into a place and grabbing brochures on brochure rack just seems so 2020.
Yeah, I mean, years ago, I pulled into a hotel and I'd go to the rack and I'd pop a bunch of brochures, or my wife would. Right. Know that we do that anymore.
I don't even get approached by, AdLib, one of the bigger agencies out of Wisconsin Dells does, right, brochure racks up and down the interstate. I think I know that they've scaled back. They're not doing kind of, that used to be every hotel had one, right? Had that rack.
And going back to the visitor center, this is one of the drawbacks we have because Franklin has this part of downtown, this part of downtown, this part of downtown. There's no convenient place to put a visitor center in that sense. Okay. And it'd be my same comment about a parking.
Yeah.
Because on my vacation, I just got back from towns. I would drive through. Here's a parking lot. Oh, that's convenient.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of stuff to do right there in that 3-block area.
I wonder, is the conversation more that we take the survey and we say, hey, Engage Franklin, this is as a tourism commission, this is what we think might help drive tourism here. And we'd be interested in funding. You can kind of see our priorities based off of how we voted on this. So we want your feedback on these and what you think is realistic and what's not, or what it would take to do a geofencing program or build a visitor center or whatever it may be. So and we want that dialogue, right? We want
I think that would make sense too. And say, hey, which of these, if any, would be appealing to you, right?
Yeah, we certainly want the dialogue.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would think so. And again, the idea behind this survey is really just to focus our thoughts and get us in agreement that these are the these are the priorities after we've had a chance to sit down and really give it some thought and not just make a judgment in a committee meeting.
Yeah.
Or commission meeting.
Well, and it's good for us to do. It's waiting for each to come in and say, hey, here's an idea we had. We'd like to do this.
Right.
So in this way, we can start to steer them and get both entity objectives met.
I agree. I would rather be driving than having to respond to a request and then try to massage it to get what we think we're after. Can we leave developing new tourism infrastructure on there as one of the priorities? Is that pretty straightforward? Does that make sense? Things like kiosks would be, of course, I think, self-standing, electronic, little visitor centers almost, throughout. This is what could work in a space as big as Franklin, where you can have one down, the south side, north side, and maybe there's 5 or 6 around town, and so
I think it's good to have it there. Makes sense. Now it may come in number 5 on everybody's vote.
all right. And anything else we want to? So do I? And again, the items in parentheses are just meant to be thinking about what are we talking about here for construction? Want me to put the visitor center back in there or no?
I thought the current plan was it might be a mobile one at most.
That's still where their head's at.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I agree with it. It's the fact of the hard copy, sitting, walking, pulling a brochure, and the tech. You have to know your audience, who you're going to attract. Right. And if you have a mobile one, even it will. How many people pick up phones?
Information is too easy to get to have to go to a certain destination.
You go to something like you said. You go to the hotels. CMNR marketing was the one that used to put the brochures in all the hotels. You don't even see that anymore. I mean, you have the waysides that do that, but they're very limited in some book. But again, if you're putting that much money into that, you're better off putting money into a kiosk where it's electronic and people are used to it. And you could have those at the airport. You could have those at wherever. I mean, you could put those kiosks available all over.
Yeah, we could do that.
The airport is an interesting.
I mean, it doesn't have to be chained to just Franklin. You put it at the airport. Somebody coming and flying in and goes, "Oh, where do we want to stay?" And they can put Franklin, and then what's there? And then you start seeing what's there, and this looks like a good place, Yeah.
Or maybe coming back full circle to Lance's idea of having some kind of information network, where people just see a sign at the airport, hashtag or go to, and get information on where to go in Franklin.
QR codes are really popular right now. We just updated ours. Just you scan it, boom, there it is.
Yeah.
I guess hashtags are a big thing that's out nowadays. So it's
QR code is probably, to me, is the most effective. But I mean, there's a way to link and give them a link. But I mean,
not that you have to have a kiosk, physical kiosk.
Right.
You could, but just a physical sign that's
the
So
network.
in so many ways, this goes back to that technology
it's
Right.
driving
advertising piece, right?
Right. It's the way to relay the information, and you just put it in some kind of a network at the city. And again, we're also talking about what we're doing with visitors when they get here.
Mm-hmm.
And like Jeff said, what are you promoting? You know, what are you going to get them here?
Right.
But it's amazing how, you know, because I'm just dealing with this right now, Polish Fest, and, you know, but so much information you can gain by somebody just zapping that QR code.
Yeah.
Right. And you're gaining their information if they purchase a ticket online. That information you have is so valuable to everybody, and it's like, and then so like Polish Fest, for example, I have sponsors, and they're going to get a QR code for their specific tickets, so I can tell them, hey, you know, you had a retention rate of 90 or 95% people coming. Oh, so now it's starting to, you know, you get all that information. So if we have some technology, you know, there's organizations, there's companies out there that you can hire that will just help you build this network. It's just crazy. It's not that expensive. I mean, it really, but again, it's to have a physical presence of a tour guide. It's like, oh, that you're gonna have to staff it. You're gonna have to per person and print it, and like printing goes out of print so fast.
Well, I added something then to the parentheses of support services, marketing technology. I put application app in there. I'm surprised I left that off because think about the power of an actual app, a Franklin app, as a supplement, or actually, to be honest, depending on how I take shape, but it's really becoming that travel planning tool. In that app, Celtic, the Polish Fest, you could get people from the airport out here. And you know what's interesting about the airport, just back to that, is that, you know, years ago when we first built the hotel here in town, the Gateway development was in full swing. And Franklin was seen as the last stop in that Gateway corridor from the airport. To the point where, you know, all the infrastructure work that they did to kind of brand the Gateway area went right up to the shores, right, of Franklin. And there was an executive director, or director at that time was gung-ho and really, you know, made some gains. And then that sort of, once that person, I think, moved on, I didn't quite see the momentum that I had seen. And now I don't hear about it at all, to be honest. Now, I maybe, or you know, there's things, but just that marketing of the Gateway corridor, I just don't hear as much. But I'm bringing it up because we really are close. We, as a Hilton property, cannot advertise that we're the airport hotel because of the Hampton Airport.
Oh,
But I will just tell you, we quietly put out there that we'll pick you up. You know, we have a vehicle that's registered with, you know, Jeff Mitchell, right? You got to pay $500 and then be able to drive in there and pick you up. But we do that with Chrysler Pacifica that we have, or we'll pay Lyft or Uber up at the airport.
when you first opened, you had a van.
And spent a ton of money. And we're like, you know, we just did analysis. We're like, isn't just staffing for that, to have a whole shuttle driving crew, fleet, you know, we gave up. Now we just, it's more on our terms, you know. We'll shuttle people to the Polo Center. I don't advertise that, but if I'm doing a wedding block, that's important to you. You only have about 10 people to take over there and you're willing to do it in 2 or 3 shuttle runs, right? So I guess we're close enough to the airport that airport advertising and getting people from there into Franklin is still easy, especially like even Staybridge on the south side there that's convenient. So that was good. So that the idea of a tie-in at the airport's
You know,
I think such an interesting idea too. Like I've waited at airports or shuttles for way too long before. If I knew I was staying at a hotel, it was an Uber, I'd do that.
yeah,
That's it.
and we just paid out of the driver gets there, take care of it. Do that for early morning too. There's a lot of early flights out of Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Actually, I thought about calling to see if I could ride it. I had a neighbor end up taking.
And hotels do park and stays. You know, you buy them with a stay overnight, but your car, instead of paying to have it parked down at the airport, leave it with us for 7 days. Or if you're going to Hawaii, a couple of weeks, 10 days. So, but anyway, so we're getting off track a little bit. But airport and either kiosk or some, is a perfect tie-in to that support services, marketing, technology. I added app to that because, again, we could create an application that could be updated in real time, pushed out there. that would be pretty, actually. But I'll throw that under there so people understand that, what we're talking about. So under developing new tourism infrastructure, are we okay? I mean, want to add to that or move beyond that one to the next line item?
We know there are examples, right? And stuff to engage. We've investigated kiosks, and they're great in places, or they're not great in places, or mobile apps, or whatever it is, right? Like it's that's the approach we're taking. I think.
Next one is developing new tourism attractions. Things like sports and entertainment venues, conference space, etc. You know, could be a brick and mortar type investment. I guess certain attractions would be signage and coordination using existing space. I'm not sure what that would be, but thought that came to mind in this one. This is there is like the Mosh at Rock, an indoor sports facility. When it comes to overnight stays and generating overnight stays at a time when people aren't typically staying overnight, then when you start talking about shoulder season, winter season, I will tell you the impact on real impact that on city room tax dollars was the event last year at the Rock. Enchant. In its first year, it was phenomenal. I mean, we could see not just a little bit of it. I mean, a substantial.
And it was less this year, right? Because it just seemed like attendance was not nearly the same.
And there are a few more hotels in the market to take
That's
the
true.
visitors, so there was a hotel right there on property. So, but that events like that, or again indoor facilities where you can house tournaments and attract folks in January, February, March. March is always a basic.
Well, and that would fit even with the Croatian parks. Once they start opening it up to rent to other people, I mean that will hopefully generate over. That was part of what they put together for. And I'll go back. I think this fits with engagement. That's his focus right now. Has been contacting. Hey, would you like to have a sports event? Let me tell you about Franklin. I think it's the right thing.
And of course, then we have the other category. Now, something just occurred sitting here, and I'm just going to toss it out there because I want to know whether it applies to something we've already talked about, or whether I'll just write it in when I fill it out. But I read to. Well, let me ask you this: as resident of Milwaukee and Franklin, or Milwaukee area, are there a abundance charging?
There's one at Culver's over 100. I know that.
I don't know how many Teslas or electric you see on the roadways here.
I'll tell you a funny story. When I was renting a car in Maui, he said, rental agent said, "Would you be willing to take an electric?" Because most of the resorts have charging stations. Well, I didn't know that, and without the one that I was staying at did not. I said, you know what? I'm planning on all these trips. I'm more comfortable with gas because I know I can go to that gas station. But if we had a guide that you have an EV, these are known places to go. That would make sense. Because they are becoming far more popular.
Well, so I was in California over there, and a lot of Teslas.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to me. I was trying to, so I had a Tesla for a couple of days, and I've always never had. That's why I do it. I spend money on charging because the hotel is right now. Hotels are offering charging. So I got lucky. Well, the hotel I was staying at didn't have that, so now I'm trying to find something asking around, folks didn't know that right across the street in a corporate office park, there are a couple of these Op Connect charging stations, and inexpensive, 22 cents a kilowatt hour, which full charge, costing about $7. That's not bad, for a tank of gas when gas is $5 a gallon in California. But anyway, I guess it was hard to find. And then in Oakland, I really had to turn this thing back in, and when it had to be charged up. And I was down around. Well, I found a Tesla. There were 13 of them at the row. Back in there. And you can go from, I can tell you, I went from 30 to 75. When a normal level 2 charger is 4.5. Okay.
And it
So-
takes me 4 minutes to fill my gas tank.
Well, what people will do is they'll just sit in the car. They'll just 25 minutes. They'll just do something, right? But anyway, I'm bringing this up because they're still pushing a lot of EVs. They will be for years. And so, this is why I'm asking this question: is it a tourism attraction if you invest in, 13 or 10 Tesla superchargers and parking? There also happens to be something else like a kiosk right there. And it is just a way of getting people, providing a service, but also then got a captive audience. That kiosk or for something. So I was just wondering if it would be one that you guys think one fits into a category up here, or whether that's sort of outside.
That would fit into the tourism.
Okay.
Yeah, there's you could do differently. Like if you had a charging station at each hotel, or some of the hotels advertise, like on Google Maps, like the hotels with E station around here, and push that out to around the road.
It's coming too. I don't know what some of the brands. I can tell you what Hilton is. Hilton is really pushing for at least 2 EV charging stations.
Do you have some of the?
We don't. And
Okay.
so we've been talking about it, and ChargePoint company. You'll see ChargePoint across the country. ChargePoint is and approved vendor. I think that have it.
I know a lot of places I've stayed do have this. I'll pull in and I was like, oh, there's an open parking spot. Oh, nope, that's a charging station.
Yeah.
Some people park there anyway.
Yeah, that's right. They do. That happened to me, and that is frustrating. Now I can see all those EV because there was a restaurant we were going to. Really needed to charge Tesla. And sure enough, some guy in a pickup truck parks right there. And oh God.
It's always a big.
Yeah. All right. So we've got our strategic under one there. We've got the strategic projects or plans, and then the rest of this document was basically expanding on some of what's listed above. Okay. So we move up. Ready to move on? So question number 2 talks about these annual signature events, and drilling down a little bit to ask commission members, how do you think it's important for the city to focus on it? Probably it's year after year. Important. Valid survey.
I think it's valid to ask that. It would be kind of, I don't even know what the right term is. Once you prioritize number 1, all of these, the extremely very, somewhat not, are going to be self-fulfilling. So if I prioritize creating annual signature events, 1, then I'm going to say extremely important.
I think so.
You would think, yeah.
You would think so. Yes.
And the same thing with investing in nature and outdoor tourism. If I said that's a number 5, then I would say, that's not important. Or some of these kind of mesh that way.
I think that's where you draw the line, right? Your number 2 could be not important to you at all. Or,
Yeah.
And the thing is have prioritized something in question 1, drilling down into it in the subsequent questions. Number 2, yeah, probably would just re-emphasize or support it, but you might get some more information as to what type
Yeah.
of like in this instance, event.
I'm not arguing against the question.
No, I'm just, the philosophy, I mean, yeah, number 2 could go if you want, but
Right.
uh,
Well, it might give
Maybe
you some
something
sense
that-
too of the strength behind
Yeah.
the, so let's say that expanding and improving that ranks overall number 3, you know. And yet we're getting a lot of extremely important or very important. Okay. It didn't fare well in the, and we're not dealing with large numbers, so that's going to skew the, also, it might give us some idea how people are feeling about that line item, or that investment strategy. More than it would be from being ranked 1, 2, or 3. And number 3, where it says, should the city invest, what type of annual tourism event should the city invest in? Select up to 3. What do you think of that question as far as out of that list? Some sense of how we guide the discussion without creating that's the direction it's going.
This is a really hard one to answer because I think if we're going back to heads and beds and the fact that we're trying to pick what's going to bring the most people here, for those of us that don't run hotels, it's hard to know like how much does a cultural heritage celebration bring in versus a food and beverage festival or whatever. As a resident, I can tell you what I'd like to see. It's much harder to bring it back to the room tax side of it and say this is what's going to draw it over.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And it does say, well, which of these, what type of tourism event to attract more overnight visitors. But you're right, if you don't really know whether this would or not, you might select something that not a lot of day trip.
Yeah.
Well, and that's like the concerts decided to shift over to. That would be possibly a cultural or heritage celebration. But maybe if I was filling out this survey and I said these first 3 are more important, select up 3. First 3 are my choice. I don't get to the cultural.
No.
But some people might say that.
Maybe it's a ranking one again where you rank all of those.
Well, and the biggest thing is like a business conference, more than one day. So now you have to put that into it.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas a large music arts festival, maybe one night, one evening, 2 evening with convention, or they're typically set up day of the vacation, 2 to 3 days, and then so you have more opportunity for stays that one than any of them, right? But you have to look at it and say, well, where are we going to have these conventions?
Where's that infrastructure?
Where is the infrastructure?
Right.
Who's going to be putting on this industry? The Polar Center can have 200 people, okay, but that's not going to really, it's not a convention downtown Milwaukee where, But again, that's why it's hard. It's very subject, and it's like, well, they're all important, but.
Well, and what we learned too with Enchant, it's timing. Held at night. I think that was one of the smartest for overnight stays. Found is people are like, I'm going to go there and I'm going to enjoy myself. I don't think I'm driving back wherever, even if they were just coming, from Grafton or something. I knows. Yeah, but they decided, well, we're just going to make this whole staycation. Well, it was the timing. Pull that in the afternoon, different story. It was noon to 6. Well, it would be as impactful on overnight stay. Well, let's go to something Mark talked about. Do we change number 3 from select 3 to just once again look at these and just kind of rank what you think are more important?
I think if you select up to 3, it's
Which is a good thing.
I think it's good.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
If you get them to force rank 5 or 6 things, they're going to start getting tired of that.
Right.
And actually, you might do what I do with some surveys. Did you see my answer on number one?
And that's the other thing too. We can skinny down. You know, we can remove some of these questions. Again, we stab at trying to go at. You know, sometimes a good survey goes at the same question a couple different ways to just get, you know, confirm opinion as opposed to maybe somebody tired and you start circling some things, and then you realize that other questions were answered. Well, that very first question you mentioned must not have been that important to you because you reinforced a couple other decisions, you know, later on. All right, well, we can leave the select up to 3 on there if that's okay. On that question number 3. Then under the support service and marketing technology investments is investment priority number 2. The question is to better promote tourism long-term, which we think have the biggest impacts, like 3. Now, I believe there were, well, no, there were more. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options.
And you have a mobile app in there.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. So actually, I'm going to put that comment right there. Have a mobile app in there.
Well, you could have it listed in that infrastructure. Put it in there.
To help them
Keep it
help somebody
consistent.
understand what that means.
Yeah, and that you're doing a little more deep diving into.
That was under the marketing investment.
Well, it's developing new tourism infrastructure.
Well, okay, but the question about mobile apps is under the support
Right. Yeah.
service and marketing technology. So should I move my app designation? I mean, should we take this question and move it to another section, or
No, I
do
think
we?
right there.
Right there. All right. And then we've got, the next is, well, okay, so what types of, now this one, number 5, what types of regional or national marketing campaigns do you think would most effectively impact over? Now, I think it was meant to be, again, part of this, the marketing and messaging part of support service marketing technology investment. It's just sort of there, you know, it shows up. I don't know if there's any place for this or whether it needs to go, but how do you feel about this as a question?
I feel like it should go, only because we should be leaving it up to Engage Franklin to know where our markets are that we're trying to draw from, but advertising opportunities are out there that will best get us our best ROI. Pie in the sky idea, but you know, I think that's that almost feels like if we say you have to spend this on TV, radio, that should be our role. It should.
Right.
We want to promote these events, or we want to promote this facility, or whatever it may be, and you guys, here's the money to do it. This is our expectation that we want, you know, X on our return. That's just my gut reaction.
Kind of feeds into third bullet, the digital advertising.
Yeah.
I think I agree with Bill. We could take that question on.
Just take it right out. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, again, you're advertising what? It still goes back to TV campaign about Franklin. Okay, well, you know, it's like, I think it needs, you know, like even a lot of this stuff is just, okay, it goes back, we already answered the question. Forcing what the plan is, but.
And the same thing with sponsorships of major, that's going to come into annual tourism events or signature events. It's all going to feed to promote the city.
That question seemed to came out more in the more nuts and bolts of marketing that's part of Engage's, you know, their span of their marketing responsibility. Just the way you know, I grabbed some questions that were generated. I asked, searching, I kind of pulled questions that fell underneath broader themes, but this one just, the more now that I see it, the more I read it, I was like, right here.
More the how than the what.
Yeah, right. All right, so we'll scratch 5. And we'll then, the next one is investing in nature and outdoor tourism. And the question is, how important is it for Franklin to expand and improve nature-based tourism to attract overnight visitors? Yeah, just asking.
That's the same as
And it says, what types of nature-based tourism investments would be most effective in increasing overnight? Of course, it says select up to 3, and there's 2 and another. So maybe that we need a few more in there, or
You could rate 3 of them. It's not going to be that big a chore, will it?
yeah, no. Basically, just
Give it a number.
take these 2 and or write in one and rank them. So that could be just a ranking situation. Do you think there's another bullet point there of a type of investment that's not listed?
The only one I wonder about is we talked going way back on the trails. Let me hit something to find out what's going on this trail. That kind of thing. I don't know. It's not geofencing, but it's something like
That's using technology again on those trails.
technology. Like, give me a map of the trail.
Right.
I don't know
Like
what the right
Google,
term
that's
is.
what I work.
But that could fit into an expanding and maintaining hiking, biking.
Do you think it's worthwhile keeping that question on the survey? And just changing.
I think it gives them an opportunity to vote and put in other ideas that somebody might have.
Right. And then just rank the ones there? You're not going to selecting up to 3 doesn't much for us if there's
Or maybe you worded a little bit differently and say what nature-based tourism investments would deliver a strong ROI in increasing overnight stays, something like that, or a strong impact in overnight stays. And then you can say select as many as you want. If we have more. If we have more than 2, right?
I just don't know if it's a valid question.
Right.
It just seems to be, outdoor tourism. Is there an outdoor tourism? What facility do we have outdoor tourism around here? We do Mushroom Madness. We have mushroom, and was that really a tourism? Does it bring tourism into the city for overnight stays? Not really. It's more of a day trips and more of a. I don't know if outdoor activities engage in. Well, I'm going to take 2 days of hiking in Franklin. Well, where are these trails that I like to? It's not like they're cliff diving, or are they going to go to the?
Right.
Are they going to go to the quarry and go check the quarry? It just doesn't make
Well, that would be infrastructure improvement.
Right, but it's like we can walk around Whittle Park. Okay, great, but you're not going to do that for 3 days straight, or
Right.
So I don't think
Definitely
outdoor. If there's
snowshoeing trip, you're probably not looking at Franklin. Probably going to
Yeah.
Norwoods. But the flip side of that, though, is if you look at the event side of it, I don't know anything about bird watching, but if it's that good of a bird watching scene and we can create an event around it, maybe we'll drive overnight. Yes, I have no idea.
I just think more overnight stays different than
Right.
like having a car show. Okay, we have a car show, but are they going to really stay overnight? No. It's just,
Right.
Fine line, right?
yeah, it's a fine line, and then to invest money into it. That's what I'm saying. It's great to fit, but how much money and what that's the biggest thing. And are we really getting the rate of return on it?
And this is what this survey is designed to do. So I take it that commission members, already feel like, well, I know why this is on here because it's been brought up in the past, but I don't think it's going to generate a lot of overnight stays, or I don't really see how investing in there is going to be a top priority for us. Right. And then answer that question. Then You
But
know,
you already answered in number one, and it's like, well, now you're coming back to me and saying, well, what's very important? Well, no, I already answered that. It's not important to me.
It's my number 5, so I'm not going to select any of the 3.
Right. Like number 7, it's like, okay, I already answered number 6, it's not
Yeah.
important. Now why do I have to select what,
yeah. Well,
So I would think, to me, I'd just scratch number 7 out and just.
that's, well,
Because you have 6 if you think that's very important. You can always work on what the activity is.
So I suppose that number 6. If everybody rated it extremely important, we'd want to know the details. I guess if we're only talking about this.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we just talking about our group here. I mean,
Right.
it's, I think it's more of an open subject where we say, okay, you think it's important? I think because we need to have bird watching activity. Okay, well, that's great. Well, it's not going to be like you have an idea and envision what that activity is. But to select it on here, you just say what activity you want. You could question like that.
well, and that's why that other please
Right.
specify might be important on here, right? So this is your chance to be like, well, I don't like any of those, not to.
Right.
But I've been thinking,
But I was supposed to select 3.
yeah,
Then it's like, so it's like, that's what I said. You
Like 0 to 3.
Yeah. like which one's best. You rather than
okay. So,
You want to just take and drop 6 and make 7, what types of nature-based tourism investments would be effective in increasing overnight stays, and then leave blanks for people to put in. We already know bird watching is part of it. I mean, we're kind of looking for ideas now.
right,
Leave that as a free form, or just have 6?
I would just have 6.
Okay.
Because again, you're asking for a.
Well, you could take 7 out after, and then 6, you could have a line at the bottom under not important. What is it?
Right.
What activity? Yeah. You could say, how could we improve?
I'm gonna scratch 7. May add to 6. You know what? Give a suggestion as to what, would improve, or attract overnight visitors listed here, or, put your idea down, yeah.
Yeah, comments.
Improve NBT.
All right, we'll do that. All right. So, tourism infrastructure and long-term. So, this is 1, 2, 4. And this says, are there specific improvements that should make to its tourism infrastructure that support long-term growth? You can select up to 3, and there's 3 plus other column 4. Enhancing signage, yes, wayfinding tools, improving transportation options, developing new retail districts to attract tourists. Other.
You'd add another bullet that says develop a downtown.
Develop a downtown.
It'd be other. Be specified.
So again, in parentheses, it does say select up to 3. So you could circle all the ones that you think are important, or you could just circle 1 and say, well, I think out of all these ones, what I'd like us to consider.
I'd be fine if it said select your number 1.
Select your top.
Select your top choice. Yeah, something like that.
All right. Still, then the follow-up to that is, what do you think is the biggest barrier preventing more overnight?
Clearly, there's not enough hotels.
Yes, right. Is that a valid question there?
I think the feedback there would be important. Because if somebody comes and says there's not enough major events, there's no attraction. That's why I don't come to Franklin, where they say, I had no idea where Franklin was. I mean, we need to improve our marketing. Transportation challenges, we don't have EV charging, that kind of thing.
Again, going back, where's this survey going?
Well, it's just going to us. So the
Right.
audience
So-
is, and this is really just to help us.
Right.
Next time we
It's not-
convene, that we have the answers so that we don't have to guess. Everyone knows this is what we thought collectively, something we should spend some time talking about, as opposed to, tossing out a bunch of ideas.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, the audience being us, probably not a bad, I mean, it is a way for you to voice your opinion, basically, on
That's
what
why
you
you should
think.
almost be fill in the blank. What do you think the barrier is?
Yeah.
Rather than selecting,
That's true.
just say, what do you think the barrier is? What, and these are some examples, but you should just, is it the number of hotels? Or whatever. I mean, you can. But it also goes back to the fact that you have to be conscious of what the city of Franklin city. Want to make it more outdoor recreation? Does it want to make it more residential? Does it want to make it more industrial? The city has a plan. Economic development has a plan to say this is what we want to do. We want to put the industrial park and we want to get that growth. Well, that doesn't work well with the recreation of outdoor activities. But now, so it has to be a combination of everything. But
I don't think that the city sees those as conflicts just because we have enough
right,
square miles
But,
to do both and
but-
have,
and how much
some of
is
those features.
private land versus public land? And that's what I'm saying. It's like,
well, I mean, you would be looking at private development for some tourism attractions.
right.
But some would be public. I mean, some, like, take for instance, the county sports complex right there next to the golf course. It has facilities that it has events at. Golf course is probably the main attraction, but and this is just one example. But if you had conference space next to that, because we have no meeting beyond your facility.
Right.
And so somebody could have a conference that's, recreationally, golf based. The sideline that people go to conferences for will be golf. Could have something up at the Rock. They don't have, significant conference space. And they've got activity space for sports. But, something that you could marry that to. I wouldn't call it convention, but something like that. But in that instance, something next to the golf course. We don't have any areas next to the Whitnall golf course. I think is really the premier one. I mean, they had championships. So, I mean, that's something you could enhance on public ground. But
Right.
otherwise, take a look at the Rock. That's private enterprise. So it's kind of a mix. I think there's room to accommodate various plans. But again, I think the city is open to visitor space, visitor activities, generate more overnight stays and sport hotels because we want to see the hotels succeed.
Well, then, looking at these last two, sort of very similar to other sections, and on that we're okay with just really how important you think it is, and, new tourism attraction development. I think it's important at all. But then number 11, what types of new tourism attraction is talking about? Got that on there. Select up to 3 or And just like the what's your biggest barrier, do you have a comment line with some suggestions? Things like sporting events. And you suggestion, and you write in your suggestion, or you know,
I think that would give us some information, like theater comes in and says, "Would you help us build a new theater?" Or historical society asks, "Can you help us refurbish the barn?" Whatever. So those answers would be beneficial.
yeah, I agree. We do. That has been for the years. Deal with that. You know, you invest in, theater. You know, and struggle with that one as far as generating.
Any other categories that you all can think of? I mean, these look specific, but in reality, they're kind of general. And there might be other categories.
Yeah, well, it's funny you bring that up because
Good.
when you guys brought it down to that level, it made a little more sense to me. But looking at this, I'm like, as broad as it is, like these items are all going to be big dollar items, right? So do we just want to go on our whim if we're going to invest in something like that? Like, I'd rather say let's hire a consultant to do a feasibility study and tell me if we're going to get a better bang for our buck on 1, 2, or 3, than to say that as a resident, I just think amusement parks are going to bring more people. That's a tougher one if we're looking at spending a big chunk of money on any of these kind of convention center. Costs a lot of money. Building a new sports center costs a lot.
In a full-fledged convention center, that even something that's feasible. Again,
Right.
you have to know if there's I would think, just a general interest before you spend the money on a consultant.
I think that too. Nobody wants a convention center. Don't do the stuff.
Or conference space. Start breaking that stuff up into multiple questions and try to keep it general and simple.
Well, any changes to 11, or we let it ride as is? Again, there's always another line on here for somebody to write in. And it's an interesting discussion, and maybe we need to, maybe there is a, well, I don't know, doomed, or is any of these bigger ticket items could benefit from consulting or some feasibility work, to realize what, to define the scope, large, small. So that's sort of baked in, I think, if you choose something, right? That you're going to have to do
So
something.
you're not going to just
Right. So I don't know that you need to have a question that says, "What do you should consult somebody on best location for an amusement park in Franklin?" Well, yeah, absolutely. So, that's what you're going to.
So yeah, Jeff's question on the sports event and recreation. Recreation is like the golf course, or it is like the soccer, but it can be used for events. We could, like I say, I mean, we were able to have golf, national level golf tournaments here. Could we do that again? Our challenge is the course is too busy. We'd have a revolt if we, shut it off to the public for 3 days.
In a sense, that's what Rock is trying to do. We have Osh, they do,
Right.
they have these events that they're already working on this. And it's almost like saying, okay, what's working for you? And then we have that history. And again, conference and convention space is a big thing, but you also have to have the infrastructure for that, the technology and all that. So it's not just build a building and say, here we have, it's a lot, then it's staffing and catering and, it just, but again, we don't have that.
It could be
What's the biggest, we can only handle so many at the center. And even at that, it's like, we're big into weddings and stuff, but it's, there's 52 weeks in a year.
Right. Yes.
And again, how does that go around into, stays at the hotel?
Yeah.
To me, I think if you have a convention, if you have you can hold a convention and bring people here, like the Wisconsin Restaurant Association, they're coming in here for 3 days. They're gonna be here doing activities and they're gonna be around, promote, they're here on Friday and they walk around the town and do it. And, well, that's great, but then we don't have that facility infrastructure. Can't have the, like we're doing a barbecue contest here. We got people coming in from out of state for the barbecue contest. Well, they're looking for rooms to stay because, they're coming in, these are big barbecue people are coming with their trailers and campers and, and they're having a big competition at the center. Well, they're going to look for places to stay. Okay, well, that's great, but, I'm a private entity and I'm running it. It's like, but do I ask for tourism dollars for that? Well, it's a fine line slope, and like, because it shouldn't be. I think it's, but can we promote that more? Yeah, in promotion, I'd be looking at promotion activity.
I would think that get a much stronger ROI in promoting something like that than
Right.
building a convention
actually
center,
building it,
amusement park.
Right, and that's what I said. How much money are we talking about to build a convention center? It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. It just.
So
But-
obviously Barbara will benefit from looking at these questions and answering them, but just in their discussion about the questions, survey questions,
Yeah.
it's become clear to me tonight that there are a couple of avenues that are just starting to make sense now. And one thing that keeps, again, coming back up is things that promote other things, that, something that makes it possible to promote and enhance what's already here or what could be coming. Because, like with the conference center, that is an interesting one, because you're right. You have convention space in downtown Milwaukee, and downtown has really been working hard to attract conventions, and they needed a certain number of hotel rooms downtown. I think they've more than caught up on that side now. So that's fine, but you're going to put a conference space in somewhere, and you're thinking about like the Wisconsin Restaurant Association coming in. I think they'd be willing to drive from hotels and be there, but then once you're there, what's it look like when you want a break for lunch? Where do you go? And so a conference facility like that would be nice. It was close to the new development, the new downtown development, basically, because you could break and walk over. Now there's several options, right? That's why the one in Brookfield, there's a conference center connected to the Hilton Garden Inn in Brookfield. Well, what's great about that? Not so much at the Hilton Garden Inn, there's a bunch of F&B options. You just walk out, you got the Brookfield Mall. Right? And you've got several great restaurants there. So that works. It works. So you got to give that's where that whole idea of you don't just build a conference facility, right?
It's a whole infrastructure.
Yeah.
Like I said, back to downtown.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking about what we're working on right now. The kinds of attractions that we have right now and how they could be supported by things. That's all.
Right.
And it would be something where, we look to try and enlarge, expand Polish Center, or expand the Lux Center.
Maybe we should buy that furniture. And gut it, turn it into for a conference center. One by Pick and Save.
Long walk to get over to the
Well,
the other side, but
it
yeah,
is.
it's possible.
That's
But that's the off hours attraction.
yeah.
See what I mean?
Well, if there's, unless there's strong opinions one way or the other, I'll leave it as we discussed. If we got to 11, why don't John and I retool this and get it back out to you?
Yep.
And we'll have it for our next. Meeting. So,
Yeah,
Sound
yeah,
good?
and one thing to keep in mind is we did have the question at the last meeting, how do we get input from community in general?
Yep.
We just, the Development Commission, Economic Development Commission, did a survey of all the residents. And put that in a professional facilitator with planning facility. And consultant, and she put the survey.
Yeah.
And it was done through a link. It was electronic. know if we're interested in tackling that broad spectrum sampling.
Yeah, I don't think that it seems to me anyway that asking our residents what's going to drive tourism is almost backwards, right? It's not.
No, like I say, it's too broad.
Yeah. Whereas in economic development, it makes a lot more sense. You can ask me where I'm going to shop or what kind of things I'm interested in my community that's going to keep me here instead of going to Milwaukee or Brookfield or whatever, right? So, but here it's almost we want to survey the people that are an hour away that stay overnight.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and so scaling that, and that may be something to ask and be Franklin, how do we, who do we target?
Yeah.
Ask that of. If we're looking at getting some outside rather than our inside.
Yeah.
You had under here, or you have under item number, revenue reserve projection. John, did you just want to share what we're talking about for a dollar amount?
Yeah. So, as an attachment, you have a couple of documents. One of them has green shading on it, and that's revenue and reserve projections. And so I'll touch on this first, and I'll roll back into budget projections, which give you an idea of where our year-end net came from. But this, except for the last two columns, this is all projections from the Department of Finance, from Danielle Brown's department. And so it basically shows you, what the expected revenue was and all that. For 2025, this is the year we break the 500, some odd $1,000 mark to get to the 30-70 split with the commission and the city. And so it shows you what 30% of the current year is, and then again, the city's putting this together, so they're looking at their revenues, and so they're weighing out which revenue choice that they would make. The greater of 30% or the current year, base of the prior year, and that's that previous equation that we were working on. So we're not going to worry about that. We're looking at 30% of the current year at this point. And so, for 2025, it takes us to 357,420. So, and then we have previous years, which are a matter of record. And so, we go to the year-end net, which is also a matter of record. 78,259 for 2023 and 87 projected for this year. For 2024, we're still in the projection part of it. But then the Tourism Commission reserve at that 394,123 for 2022, and the 2023 number of 472,382. That's matter of record. Those are from audited reports. So. Going from those numbers going forward, and I'll go over that right now. I took and projected our budgets based on what we have now, and most of that spending, and I'll point out how it looks like we'll probably continue in that vein with the discussions we've been having. I dropped out the Croatian soccer this year from the reserve because it's got to come out somewheres.
Right.
Okay, let's take it out this year. Could be next year. Could be the year after. At the bottom line, might not happen at all. So the WAG is, at the end of the day, at the end of 2030, could be an extra 100,000 in there if they don't come around to getting their funds raised. I expect they probably will, but we gotta keep that in mind.
John, what's the negative 1695 projection for 2025? Would that be? We're projecting based on our budget and commitments, we're expected in 2025 to have a deficit that would eat into our reserve.
Okay, and that's because you look, the projection for 2024 will be 87 because of our $50,000 budget item that we had for the banners.
Oh.
Not being spent that year, it gets spent this year.
And that's what drives that.
That's what drives,
60.
that's what drives that deficit.
Nice.
And you'll see, and the other thing is we kept 35,000 in the grant program.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, you're just, so that 87,188 is richer than it actually will be, and with
Well,
commitments we've already made to spend dollars.
It's richer than it should have been, but it goes in the reserves.
So it'll be spent in. Got it.
So,
So we're talking about at the end of this year, even tracking, let's say, a one-time payments for the commitment we've made, we'd be still at 443. So if to answer that question, if you were asked, well, what kind of money are we talking about? This is what we're talking. And just given our current rate of spending of our 25%, not going to Franklin, adding on to that by about $25,000. If the expected revenue, and I think as Sleepy matures, their revenues are going to like that, but kind of get its footing, don't get that occupancy stabilized.
and I know that there was another table that had new hotels on it that were feeding into these numbers.
New hotels is in properties that haven't.
The mainstays.
Oh, I got it. Okay,
What was the other one?
but not what's a main
Sleep
combination.
Mainstays. So,
That's what we're.
any questions on that? So, looking out with projected budgets, when we take a look at 2025 budget and going down through it, we kind of looked at numbers that we had been budgeting. Total resources, total revenues of $368,000, 2025, and legal services. Just if we're going to be doing grant stuff, and that's down a little bit, and that will decrease over time. I expect that after we get, the grant program worked out a little more, and do any other agreements that we need to do. Sundry Contractors is Engage Franklin.
What else is in there?
Pardon?
What else is in there? Or is that all? Is that only engaged?
Sundry, that's only Engage.
Only.
Postage is kind of a nod to some of the mailing we may have to do. Office supplies really don't. Kind of would take that out of postage or something. So that takes us down to tourism events. Now, we did do $1,000 with the Franklin Parks concerts, and don't know where that's at right now.
That
all
was
in
on. I did refer that to Engage, and that was on their agenda for last week.
Okay. All right. So, but for events, that one single event was $1,000, would not be beyond the realm of reality that we might spend $5,000 a year to have some small events get promoted somehow. So, conferences and schools, $2,000 in there. Commission wanted the ability to go and attend some of the conferences. There's 3 of them that happen every year. And then mileage for $1,000 supports that. Then down to marketing services, we have $15,000 in there. That could be to do a study for what we have right now. Would we continue to put that kind of money into some kind of a study or some kind of promotion or advertising? Perhaps, maybe not, but we'll probably spend it somewhere. It could be Engage Franklin that uses those dollars. Advertising, that could be a legal expense advertising for a meeting of some sort. Or it could just be some kind of a event that the commission is operating. So now the grant program, like I said, I left that in this year at $35,000. I don't know if we'll spend it. That's the biggest question mark I have in that budget. So we may not end up with 16,000. Right? If we don't spend any of that money, we'll end up with 16,000 in the good.
Right.
So, anyways, and like we talked about, we're just for the $50,000 on the streetscape signs. We're just doing that this year rather than. So that's what takes it down. So going forward, the $35,000 and that $15,000 for marketing services and the grant program. Again, the grant program, Engage Franklin may want to tap into that this year. Going forward again, so Engage Franklin tapping into that, or us doing some kind of a study that would anticipate Engage is going to utilize some of that. We may need to utilize some of that to do a study of some sort, but that's how I see that being spent going forward. So you may want to, that's $50,000. So that's what I use to generate those surpluses, those nets going forward, and that's pretty conservative. I would expect those net contributions to the reserves to be a little more than what we have. But again, as Engage utilizes those funds or you reallocate them to Engage, I still see them being spent for the most part.
So the column that says 2025 department request budget.
Yes,
Okay.
that's and the city approves it because this is really kind of a bookkeeping tracking kind of thing. Somebody says ask the city, well, how do you know what these guys are spending? We account for it.
Right.
We do budget.
I think it's good to have that.
But forecasting out 5 years. But the art of it isn't that $50,000. How much of it is going to get redirected directly through a budget amendment or just in granting to Engage Franklin? I don't know. That's for you guys to think about more.
Right.
Like I said, it's good information to have.
And I was just doing some quick math on the budget projection. Pretty real. Conservative estimate by the city. Room tax at 8%.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers are hotel and yes on where and what that choice property, and added that all up and took 70% and higher than 2025.
Okay. That's good too.
Yeah, so I think as long as the economy doesn't, no more pandemics, we'll be all right. Okay, so with that, now you have some idea of what that reserve balance, what we're talking about as far as investment dollars. So if I can move on to item B, a banner bracket project.
We're ready to start work. They wanted to start Monday and tried to caution them. They finally said, well,
Coldest
maybe
day
we'll
of the
wait
year.
till Wednesday or Thursday. Good idea. We're flexible. We don't want anybody getting frostbite. So, yeah, they're ready to go, and we just need to amend the budget for streetscape signage and billboards, $1,000.
What was the number originally?
15.
Was it in 2024?
2024 it was 50.
Okay.
This year it was 15.
Okay.
So
The You need a motion to increase from 15 to 50.
Correct.
I'll make that motion. Not 15 to 15,000.
2025 budget line item for CCA signage billboards, $1,000. I have a second for discussion. Second is good.
Sure.
Right. Bill seconds that motion. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. All right. O's and financial. So this is the requirement by the, do we have an update on, are they still waiting on a few or?
I didn't see any that were outstanding because they had a
Sounds like
folder with people that hadn't taken them, so I didn't see anybody's name.
everyone stopped in.
I did
Yours?
So
I got mine done.
nobody-
And I think Barbara was the first one to do it. So.
I haven't received anything about the financial closure.
Coming out March.
Okay.
Yep, I asked to be out in March.
Okay. Wrap with that. New business. The new business items?
That was one thing I was thinking of in terms of, well, obviously we have the survey now that'll give us some good ideas on what we can be doing with the money that we're sitting on. But also one thing I thought that might be worth exploring was getting Brandon and visit Milwaukee in a room with us to talk about more regional opportunities that's out there. I don't know what they are. Maybe there's nothing, but would it make sense to ask them, Laura or Peggy or somebody from Milwaukee to come in? We work with them as a district a lot, and obviously they're trying to bring bigger things to the area. Their way Franklin could benefit from that. The way we can piggyback on some of their advertising or something that they're doing. I don't have any idea, but thought maybe it would be an interesting conversation.
I would guess that they'd be happy to. I know we've had president or whoever the chief lady is.
Peggy Lanston.
Okay. She came in once and talked to us.
How long ago was that, Mark? Remember? I can't even remember. Maybe I wasn't.
We were
at that
downstairs, probably 2 years ago.
At least 2 years and 7 months, 8 months.
Okay. And then since then, obviously, Laura has joined that organization.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm sure she'd be happy to come in and talk to us. It'd be beneficial for Brandon. I'm sure. I think it's a good idea.
I was thinking, I don't want Brandon to feel like we're stepping on his toes or like telling him to do something that's out of his comfort zone. I just thought maybe it would be another opportunity for us to figure out how to broaden our reach and help him.
It would help him establish his action plan going forward. So, yeah, it'd be beneficial.
Cooperative advertising opportunities.
Yep.
Been a staple in tourism that I know of. But
Right. And would this be an opportunity then for Peggy or whoever, or Laura, if she represents Milwaukee, to bring tourism commission members up to speed on what Milwaukee does, and
Yeah,
in addition to what they're working on regionally, that might be important.
Yeah.
But I don't remember that conversation with. I must not have been in that meeting. I would love to just, hear more about the organization.
In full disclosure, in case there's a conflict, I think Peggy's Visit Milwaukee's a member of my organization, and we do business with them, but we're close, and I think they do a very good job too. I wouldn't have brought it up.
maybe Brandon could talk a little with Laura,
Mm-hmm.
at least beforehand.
Sure.
Run it through.
And then
them.
that way it won't be so much.
I can talk to Laura and to help us guide that.
And that way, it's not Brandon getting hit cold with the
Right,
ideas.
right.
Get warmed up a little bit.
Yeah, and I told Brandon I would brief him after tonight's meeting. I'm going to call to Laura. Time for, and I need to make that connection.
You want to list that then? Is that just going to be a to-do under this
Be a to-do item, it's just timing.
Yeah.
When do you want, what meeting do you want it to come in?
And that could be mainly that agenda creation, item, right? You know, get some conversation going back and forth. Yep. All right. Is it okay then for, like Mark, for you to make that outreach to Laura and sounds like Bill knows Peggy, so if there's anything else that you want.
I can give Laura a call, and I'm sure she'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. All right. Any other new business?
One other thing that just came to mind, and maybe this isn't appropriate, maybe this is a engaged Franklin thing. I don't want to cross any lines, but kind of along the same way to support Brandon and development, what he's doing. There's governor's conference on tourism is coming up in La Crosse. That's a part of Franklin's budget, or if it helps supplement.
I believe he is going to that.
Okay.
I think that he would up for
Good. It's a good one to be at because the Secretary of Tourism usually talks about markets that Travel Wisconsin is investing in, and then co-op opportunities and opportunities to piggyback off of those advertising campaigns. So to me, it's kind of like low-hanging fruit in the tourism promotion world, right? Like, okay, well, we know for in the Chicago market, we can supplement that and get people that are coming from Chicago to stop in Franklin.
Well, there's a ton of people in Brandon at that situation, networking / how are other people doing it?
Yep.
Yeah.
When is that?
It's the second week of March. It's coming up.
So it is coming. Now, in our budget, we have dollars set aside for December to attend. So if there's somebody going,
I'll be there for work. So
Yeah.
I'll ask for money. So if any of you go, let me know. I'll find you if I can be.
all right, another good business. But yeah, it's good to because we did set aside dollars to select voters. All right, voucher approvals. We have the 25% or 75% of receipts for the month of January. January 25 revenue. So here we're dispersing as it comes in now, right? So finance department said I've got 52,000 in here going to you, and so I'll take 75% of that. Just disperse it. So we need approval on that. The motion to approve the payment of the $39,042. Right. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. Jeff, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Voucher is approved. I'll just sign this one here. That'd be all right, or do you have one that doesn't have a staple mark in it? You want me to?
Official.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Next meeting, third Wednesday would be March 19th. How's that work for everybody?
I will be out of town. But March is so I might just be out of town.
I can do the 19th, but I'm pretty open.
All right, well, given that dates are going to be tough in March for you, Bill, why don't we'll stick with the 19th then, and we'll, Barbara, we're going to have a quorum.
Well, we got a quorum with the three of us anyways.
All right, March 19th it is. And motion.
Thanks.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Much faster next month.
Yeah, bringing up all this new business.